Good afternoon. Hello. Yay. It's so good to see so many of you here today for our Gerontology panel. Thank you for being here. I'm Kate Byerwalter of the Psychology Department, and I have just a few things I'd like to share with you on the slides here before we begin, but the majority of our time is going to be hearing from our expert panelists. So let us just start with why do we want to study gerontology? One of the things that we notice is the population is getting older. If you look here, it used to be back in 1900, there were very few people in their 80s and above, and now the population has shifted, and so there are almost as many people in the 65 and up category as there are in the younger ages. So as the baby boomers are aging, we are seeing a real shift that's really going to affect our society as people get older. Gerontology is the study of aging from middle age through later life, looks at physical, social, and cognitive changes, and also has implications for programs and policies. Geriatrics, we'll also talk about a little bit today with one of our panelists especially, is the study of health and disease in later life with a focus on well-being for the person and the caregivers. Our GRCC Gerontology certificate is in conjunction with another major, so I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but you wouldn't come here for an associate's in gerontology. You'd be receiving a nursing degree or a social work degree or a psych degree, but this could be a supplement for you, the gerontology courses. Where do professionals in aging work? I don't know if you can see all of these, but there's a number of places. Things that you might not have even thought about, such as marketing or business and industry, or entrepreneurial ventures, like maybe you want to have a travel agency and you want to focus on older adult travel, as well as academic settings, human service settings, retirement communities, and more. This is an example. Today, Renee may talk about this a little bit, of Clark Retirement Community's memory care has a Montessori approach. And I love that picture of her. She looks very excited. It's the idea of bringing independence and purpose. So even as someone has dementia, trying to help them have as purposeful and independent life as possible. At community college, we have our certificate program, and the credits do transfer towards a 4-year degree. In this handout that we will give you, you'll notice, you can go ahead. You will notice that many of them transfer, for example, to Grand Valley as within the sociology department. If you get an associate's level with our gerontology certificate, you're probably looking at an entry-level job or an advancement within your job. So we'll ask our panelists a little bit more about that, like what the benefit might be to you if you go ahead and get the certificate here. How might it help you when you're out there trying to get employed? Our certificate is 18 credits, so that's 4 gerontology courses and 2 elective courses in psychology or social work. And as I said, the courses do transfer to most 4-year schools. Coming up in winter 2019, we do have 2 courses, Physical Mental Health and Aging, taught by our faculty, Laura Byers will be teaching that, and Death and Dying, taught by Sheila Schindler, who's right here. Next fall, we will have Growing Old in a New Age and Aging in America. Growing Old in a New Age is more of the introductory course in a way, and Aging in America focuses on resources, like how do you find what resources you might need in a community. I just mentioned Laura, if you could just raise your hand for us, and Sheila, and also one of our panelists today, Cheryl Edwards-Cannon. So thank you all for being here. If you wanted to go on and focus in gerontology at a higher level, you can do so with a bachelor's, a master's, or even a doctorate. There's fewer programs that have a doctorate right now, but there are some across the United States. And that might lead you to a career a little bit different than if you had the associate's level. So you might be looking more at research or teaching or administration in a retirement community, for example, or in healthcare. Some people take our gerontology courses for continuing education credits. So if you're a practicing social worker, you might need continuing ed, and our courses could help you satisfy that as well. How do you locate jobs in the field of aging? I strongly recommend that you just get out there and volunteer. Call someplace and ask, hey, do you take volunteers? I'd like to see what it's like. And many places would welcome you to come help out. Become familiar with agencies and definitely network. So that's what we're hoping to help you try to do today with our panelists as well. So now I'd like to introduce our panelists. We have Glennie Hammersma here from the GRCC nursing faculty, and she's also a geriatric nurse practitioner with Mercy Health. Renee Parham is here from Clark Retirement Community. Mariah Bush from Porter Hills. And Cheryl Edwards Cannon, who is the CEO of Clear Path Choices, and she'll probably talk to you a little bit more about that. Okay, thank you. So if our panelists, if you would go ahead and come up, we'll get started. How I'd like to run this is to simply have, our faculty is going to ask our panelists some questions, but I really want you at any time, if you're sitting there and you have a question, just raise your hand. I'll try to keep my eye out for it, and I can bring the microphone to you, and you can get your questions asked as well, okay? So we'll run the panel probably till about 5:30, and then I wanted to give you some time if you want to come up afterwards and talk individually with our panelists. We'll have a meet and greet time there too, okay? So here we go.
Well, hi everybody. I'm Sheila Schindler. I'm one of the instructors, and I teach, thank you. Okay, I teach the death and dying class as part of this certificate, which is way more fun than it sounds, I hope. But anyway, I'm here to first thank everybody for coming. Thank you so much for, after a long day at work, probably coming here and being on this panel to share your experiences and kind of put this population on the radar screen for all these students. And then I'm so glad you all came. Thank you. This is great. I know it's something that may be of interest, but I think even if you're not sure you want to work in this area, this is all great information because old people like me are invading. We are coming, and we will be part of everything that you will be doing. Probably, like I worked in early childhood, and I had a lot of grandparents raising grandchildren. So even if you don't expect it, this will be relevant. So, okay, here is your first question. So, first we would like to ask each of you to share what it is you currently do within the field of gerontology or geriatric and how you became interested in working with this population. So, where are we starting? Start.
Do you want me to start?
Sure.
Okay, I can start. I am Glennie, and I teach here at Grand Rapids Community College, and I have been interested in geriatrics since I was a freshman in high school, or probably before then. I started volunteering. They called it a candy striper back then, and passed water and changed trash bags and fell in love with older adults. And so that led to pursuing my master's degree in nursing, specifically as a geriatric nurse practitioner. So I spend some of my time working with Mercy Health in long-term care as a geriatric nurse practitioner, and then the bulk of my time I teach here in the nursing program at GRCC. And my focus is geriatrics, so we have a specific course in geriatric nursing and learn why working with older adults is different. Just like you do take your child to a pediatrician or a family practice physician or provider that specializes in pediatrics, older adults need providers to care for them that are experts in the unique aspects of what happens as we grow older. And so I love older adults, and it is such a privilege to work and learn with them each day.
My name is Renee. I work at Clark Retirement Community. I am on our life enrichment team. I'm a life enrichment specialist. My background is in recreational therapy. And where I work is on our assisted living memory care community. And so I'm working with older adults who have dementia, kind of in the middle later stages. And how I fell into this gerontology world was actually by accident, I would say. I was attending Grand Valley and needed a field work for my program that I had to fulfill. And I went to a field work workshop, I can't remember what you call it, but ended up volunteering and doing that at a nursing home just because I needed the hours, and just absolutely fell in love with this population. I mean, they're so unique, and they're so you learn so much, and there's such this beautiful give and take, and it's just really an honor, I think, to be able to care for them and build these relationships and respect that is just really unique and special.
My name is Mariah. I am a neighborhood guide at Porter Hills Catered Living, which basically means I manage a section of the catered living. I originally went to Central Michigan University to become a physician's assistant. And by my second year of schooling, I realized that I'm really not into blood and guts. So I took a couple business classes, and I received a degree in healthcare administration. Though while trying to get clinical hours to become a PA, I started as a CNA, a certified nursing assistant in Mount Pleasant, and I ended up doing that for 4 years, which kind of helped me grow my passion for older adults. And then I started at Porter Hills with an internship, which is always a really great way to get involved and to get experience in any field. And then I had a job kind of like Renee's, with independent living. And then in the past year, I've been the neighborhood guide for catered living.
Great. Good afternoon. I'm Cheryl Edwards-Cannon. My journey into geriatric care, or gerontology, happened in 1998 when my mother received a diagnosis of early onset dementia. As you can imagine, for some of you, that was way before the internet. There wasn't a lot of information out there for me to research to know what this meant for her. So I took control of my own learning so that I would know what to do for her and what to expect from this disease. That journey lasted 17 years. I made my mother a promise that she would always look and feel and know that someone was watching out for her. And that promise expanded to 17 years. I lost her about 3 years ago. Out of that experience, I decided that there was a lot that I had learned. There was a lot that I discovered, and I made mistakes, but I moved on from that and decided, it was actually the suggestion of my sister, why don't you just do caregiving or help other caregivers with this journey? And I said, well, you know, we have a mortgage. The bank kind of likes us to pay that mortgage every month. And I said, just to up and quit and do this kind of work is kind of risky. She said, well, you don't like your job anyway, and they're not really crazy about you. And so, and she was right, because a few months later I got fired. So yeah, it happened. And that was a few years ago. So out of that, I decided to create my own consulting company. And what I do is help other families who are struggling with being in service to other people who can no longer take care of themselves. I create a plan for how to navigate that, and so that you can survive, you can maintain your sanity, and in some cases that we will talk about later, will keep you out of jail. And so how did I get here at community college? I was in the certificate program. I graduated 3 years ago. And at the time, I thought there was so many other things that we could do for our students and encourage you to be in service to others. I had a conversation with the dean, Dr. Connor. Okay, and this is the part I have to be careful about, because when you give input, somehow or other you're going to be asked to return that. So about 4 months ago, I got an email from Dr. Connor saying, hey, remember me? Remember the conversation we had when you graduated? How would you like to teach a class this fall? I laughed because I'm many things, but an educator, I am not, but I am loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. I encourage my students to think about the book that we have as our textbook teaches a theory, and I want our students to actually put a face on the people that you're in service to. And how does that change your perspective on aging? So the consulting work I do is to give families some peace of mind, some direction that you can navigate these challenges and you will be just fine. So I don't know where all this is going to lead me in the months to come, but right now I'm enjoying being in service to all the old people that I come in contact with.
Thank you. You all come at this from a different perspective, so it was a great set of answers to listen to. So the next question I have is open for anyone to answer. If you want to answer it, just jump in, but all of you don't have to, and that's true for all the rest of the questions. Anyone who wants to address it is fine. So this question is, why do you think it's important for people to study gerontology, or in what ways might the gerontology certificate at GRCC help students in terms of employability and performance on a job?
I think no matter what kind of education you get, anything with gerontology is going to help you out in just about any real world situation, because you're going to come across older adults throughout your entire life. I also think for employment purposes, that's where healthcare is going. Long-term care with the baby boomers is huge, and as of right now, we don't have the resources or the people to handle all the older adults that will be coming. So the amount of jobs that are going to be created, and like she said, with marketing and human resources and so many different areas, all those places are going to need you. So getting that experience is only going to put you further ahead in your career.
And building on that, having an understanding and learning what makes older adults unique helps empower you as an individual and those you work with to really give that highest quality care and attention, whether it's in a service industry or if you're working in delivering pizzas. It all impacts how we interact with people.
And I often think too that there's unfortunately negative stereotypes around older adults. And so I think any sort of education that you can have around gerontology will help you to have that one step further and to really have that good relationship and understanding.
No,
Sure,
they
no.
covered it.
All right, now for people who are looking for maybe jobs in the future, what kind of things on a resume impress you? Is it more experiences or education or a combination?
For me, it's a combination. I mean, education is always a positive thing to see. If I see, a gerontology certificate or anything like that on a resume, it always piques my interest. But, if someone doesn't have that, but they have been working as a CNA in a nursing home or somewhere other community like that for a long time, or maybe they volunteered for a long time working with seniors, that's also something that I look at too, and what I really look for too when I'm hiring somebody is, do they have the heart? Do they have the heart for the older adults? Because we can teach skills. Skills can be learned, but having that heart and that care, that's something that, is kind of innate, I would say.
I'll add a little bit to that. In my consulting group, I have other people that I can deploy to our clients if the need exists. Everyone on the team for Clear Path Choices has had some kind of previous experience with working with someone who could no longer take care of themselves. And that's key in our organization, that when you speak, when you interact, your other behaviors are so important to me that you understand that you can put yourself where they are and be patient and be insightful and the heart. So absolutely, the books that we use can teach you all that theory, but unless you're getting in front of other people so different than you on many levels, you need to be tested whether or not you really have the heart for it, because we can't teach you the heart, but we can certainly give you the opportunity to cultivate your own heart.
It's kind of funny. So recently I've been trying to decide if I want to go back to school and get my master's or maybe nursing or certificates. I don't know. And I was so stressed about it. And I was speaking to this college counselor, and she said, you can go get a degree, you can go to school, but what is that going to prove to an employer? It proves that you know how to pass a test, right? Going to school is incredibly important, and I think it gets your foot in the door, but it's the experience and the knowledge and the skill that you get from that that's going to give you that extra factor compared to employers and to your competition.
That's a good point.
Thank you. The next question is if each of you could share an experience with an older adult that has been particularly positive and memorable to you. Yes, a special experience.
So I have one that recently happened. So I had a resident who unfortunately had a stroke, and so she had to go out to another facility for a while for some rehab, and she was gone for about 3 or so weeks, and so quite a big chunk of time. And she was someone who I had a pretty strong relationship with, and just really cared for. And she came back with the therapy team for a home visit to see and make sure that she would be safe to return. You know, how would she maneuver with her walker? Those sorts of things we wanted to look at. And so I happened to be walking down the hallway, and they wheel her around. She's in a wheelchair at that point, and they wheel her around the hallway, kind of see each other face to face, and she just instantly goes like this, oh. And so just seeing that reaction from her just made me instantly cry. And just having that relationship with her and feeling that she missed, she might not remember my name or know my name at all, but she knows me, you know? And so that was so meaningful. I'll probably never forget that. That was pretty wonderful.
I think when we love working with older adults, that there ends up being more special situations than we could even describe right here. We had a really, really special 105-year-old resident at the facility where I have students and then also where I work and see patients or see residents. And she's so precious. And she would walk down the hall past our med cart, and she would say, oh, you're Glennie from CC. And she actually knew another of our nursing faculty. And she would really mentor my nursing students. And she would say, I don't think I have a purpose here anymore. And I said, oh, yes, you do. Every day you have such a purpose. You're teaching us. And I had a student who wasn't successful last spring, and she's back in my group right now, which is so wonderful. And one of the saddest moments for this student was that she was so looking forward to seeing this 105-year-old lady again, and she passed away this summer. And so it was hard news to share because this lady was so very, very special. And we all, I'm sure, have so many more residents and patients that we would want to talk. We could keep you here all night.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I have so many, my head is just spinning. But when people comment on the amount of time I spend with older adults, they seem to want to lay a blessing or a commendation on me. And I push that back because my takeaway is any time I can improve their station in life, I can spend a little time with them, then I take a little bit of their stories from their lives with me. I leave a little bit of me, and sometimes I leave hours of me because I don't know when to go home. But I appreciate them, their stories, their concerns. There was a woman that I was sitting with last night who is wheelchair bound. She has MS, advanced MS, and we got to talking about the election. We didn't agree on the ballot, but so I asked her, I said, well, are you registered to vote? And she kind of hemmed and hawed. No, she wasn't. I said, well, you're going to be. So we found a computer. We went online. I helped her fill out her application for an absentee ballot. I said, you will be voting on Tuesday. Okay, now we'll talk about what you vote for and who you vote for. But so I have to go see her later on today to tell her she's all set to do her voting on Tuesday. So I think we leave a little bit of us, but we take so much more to share with other people when we leave.
Mariah. Can I just talk for you for a second then? So Mariah works at Porter Hills where my mom is. And Mariah actually coached my mother in Odyssey of the Mind for seniors. Are you familiar with Odyssey of the Mind? It was so funny. And although they didn't win any awards, my mom made her very best friend ever in that experience. So I'm very grateful. And it was wildly entertaining to watch. Okay. All right. Here's the next question. In what ways are older adults the same as they might have been in their younger years, and what things might make them react to things differently? Should I read that again? I'll read it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll read it one more time. In what ways are older adults the same as they might have been in their younger years, and what things might make them react to things differently? Does that make sense?
Could I try that? Oh. Okay. Let me tell you a story about King Tut. King Tut is my dad, and he actually lives at Clark, and Renee does know him. Okay. My dad is a retired police officer. He's 93, and the similarities to the fine statesman that he is today is the dad that I remember when he was much younger. He is impeccably groomed. He does not come on. He lives in skilled nursing. He does not come out of his room unless he is shaven, his hair is brushed, his clothes are clean, and he has to have his smell good on. Now you guys know what that is, right? He has to have his polo. You know how expensive that is? And so I make sure he has a stock of his fine fragrances. Now he is ready. That is not any different than the man he was when I was a child, okay? So when the system works in a way to support his routine and his likes, then he is happier. He's in a good place. And I don't get slammed when I go to see him in the evening about what didn't go right today. We can spend time talking about other things. So moving his cheese all around his room is not a good thing for him. Let's try to make him comfortable, give him what he wants. He wants to be clean and well presented. I continue to do his laundry because he likes to have his clothes clean and ironed. So I just did that this morning at 5:30. And I have a new bottle of Polo Cologne in the car to take over to him tonight. And then if that little bit of accommodating his habits and his wants and his desires will get him into even a better space of wanting to live longer and be healthier, I'll do it every day of the week. So they're in a routine. I think we have to honor that, Sheila, and I think we have to support their routine. There's no reason to try and manipulate them into doing something that they clearly don't want to do. And that's King Tut.
Agreed. So many of the folks in the older generation went through the Depression, or they grew up in it, or their parents went through it. So many of the things that they do reference back to that. I think in any community we feed residents like crazy, like big breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they probably won't finish their meals, but you'll bet they'll put it in a napkin, stuff it in their purse, and take it home because they're going to save every little morsel. And also I think as people age, and often if they do develop dementia and Alzheimer's, they tend to reference back to times in their lives that they remember. They may not remember 2 years ago, but they'll remember something that happened 20 years ago. And they tend to kind of repeat a lot of the things that they used to do back in their time. So one thing that we really ask our staff to do, besides just the daily tasks, is to build relationships with them and create their routine and their daily life based off things that they enjoyed in their past, because they do. That's what they reference back to.
We have our nursing students do an exercise that we call Get a Glimpse, and my students did it yesterday. And what it is asking the resident about their life when they were about the age of 20, thinking that a lot of our values are established by that time, and asking them what they did. And 2 of my students spent like an hour talking with their resident, and they came away, we call our get together at the end of the day, post-conference, and they were just amazed at what these people were telling them, that they used to send letters to each other, and they didn't have phones, much less iPhones, to communicate. And it's so interesting to see them develop that appreciation and think about that. Another sort of tangent is thinking about the physical changes that happen to older adults that impact them so much. So we have some common health changes that can happen with the eyes and with mobility and with reaction time. So when you're driving home after class and you're really frustrated because this person just seems to take so long to start going when the light turned green and you would have been another block down the street, that reaction time is slower. But it doesn't mean that they're cognitively not able to process information and learn new things. And it's really helpful for us to keep that in mind, kind of trying to get into their space of what is it like to have macular degeneration and know that you can't see that computer screen because your vision's all blurry in front and there isn't anything that can really be done for it. And not only that, but you can't hear as well. And sure, hearing aids are great, but they cost a lot of money and they're never the same as our own hearing. And so the grandkids having a really good time and bouncing and laughing sounds like they're in the arena at some big concert or something. So I think those changes of aging are things for us to keep in mind, and a neat thing about getting some more education and learning about older adults.
Mm-hmm. I think they covered it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go on.
So the next question we have is, in what ways do you see the field of gerontology changing in the next 10 to 15 years?
I love this question because I think so I think of it as, when you think about yourself as a senior, do you find yourself wanting to go live somewhere where you're going to have to be taken care of 24/7? 9 times out of 10, you're going to say no, right? And unfortunately, that's something we have to do for so many of our parents because there's not a ton of options besides home care. So I think, I only think this because I know Porter Hills has this option right now, and I think it's beautiful, but such a thing called like outpatient nursing home. So I think in long-term care, people want to age in place, meaning they want to age in their own homes. They want to be able to live as long as they can and even die in their own homes rather than a nursing home. So like home care, outpatient nursing home is kind of like residents go somewhere for the day where they receive all their dental, podiatry, audiology, anything like that, but they still go back home. So they get the care and the services they need during the day, but they're able to go back home. And just like home care, I think home care is going to be growing exponentially, and it is, because people want to stay in place and have the services brought to them. So I think 10, 15 years down the road, I think nursing homes are going to just shrink in size, really, and more like assisted livings or retirement communities where it's more home-like setting, and person-centered care is going to continue to grow.
From a life enrichment standpoint, so when you think of a nursing community, what activities do you think of that they do? Bingo. Bingo. No. So what we're finding is that the things that they are wanting to do is really changing, especially with this baby boomer population that's coming in. So last night, sometime this week, for our Halloween party, instead of doing your traditional, Halloween party with music or treats or whatever, we actually had a murder mystery dinner, which was a blast. They had so much fun with it, and we decided to actually, it was like a missing diamond type thing, and to see all the residents get really into it, and their characters had backstories and accents and all kinds of crazy stuff. It was awesome. And so seeing them really engaged in something like, I like to go to murder mystery dinners, and so it's bringing this new age of stuff. And I don't take my residents to breweries, but our independent living residents go to breweries and different wineries, and so they've done big bus tours up to Traverse City and back, and so really just revamping what it means to be in life enrichment for these older adults. It's been a really ever-changing experience, and I think it's going to continue to grow to how do we meet these interests and how do we meet these needs of things that they all want to do. So it's been cool.
Okay, let's kind of hone in on what your day is like working in this field. So can you describe what your day at work was like yesterday?
I know, I was like, what was yesterday?
Yeah.
Or recently? Yesterday was Halloween.
Yesterday was Halloween. For me, I mean, it's my day-to-day changes every day. I spend a lot of time on the floor with the residents. Typically, my day consists of some meetings. I mean, meetings are inevitable and they're good for making sure that everyone's on the same page because we have so many different departments and you're not always going to see each other, and so it's really good to have that so everyone's on the same page. Today I took the guys out for lunch for Steak and Shake, so I usually have an outing at least once a week. I do different assessments with our residents, so I was doing some mochas and just different assessments with them. I'll help lead activities as needed, and so my job is kind of like a catch-all is what I like to describe. And so if you're in life enrichment, if that's what you kind of end up in, that's what you'll find. I think everyone's jobs kind of ends up being like that too. And there's a need and you just go out and you take care of it.
It's a long day. It is a long day. It's for me, it's a 12-hour day, pretty much every day of the week. So I'm an early riser, so I'm up at 5:30 because operating my own business, there's always client follow-ups that I have to do. And because I'm also an author, there are opportunities to promote my book that I'm working on. So feel free to see me afterwards. But anyway, and then you just work your regular gig during the day. But my day doesn't end until after I go over and have dinner with my dad. And so that's a production all in itself. And so we spend time talking about what I did today or what he did today. And then after dinner, during dinner, what I've gotten into a routine with some of the residents there is doing daily trivia. And it's now competitive among the staff, Renee. The residents they're all guessing, why does the Tower of Pisa lean? And there's all kind of responses to that. But the staff is also weighing in. So over dinner, that makes it a very sociable time, for the residents. And when they're on a track of really getting these answers right, they want more questions. So I've got to go find more for us to discuss. Then after dinner, then I usually do some other kind of activity with my father to wind him down for dinner. And I usually don't leave. He doesn't like for me to leave him until actually he's in bed. Now that might be 9 o'clock at night. And so we watch the news together, we talk some more. We might play cards together. We might do laundry together. I might go outside with him for a while. So it's all of that. Then I finally get home, and my husband and I will have a very late dinner or try to get caught up with what we've been doing all day, because we are also in service to his mother, my mother-in-law. And so the day is like that every day. I travel a bit, so I never leave town unless I touch base with King Tut and make sure that he has everything that he needs. That his laundry is done, and he knows where I'm going, he knows when I'm coming back, he knows what doctor's appointments I've got arranged for me to take, and then the day starts all over 8 hours later after I leave him. So it's a heavy lift, it's a labor of love. I will do it again and again, because leaving him in a good place at the end of the day when he's comforted and he's comfortable and he feels like he's got some meaningful time with me is worth every minute. I'm sleep deprived sometimes, but that's okay. I'll take a nap in his room instead. And it's a job that's not for everybody, but you do it because they depend on you.
So my job's kind of changed quite a bit over the past couple of years. although everything we do is based around the residents, what my job now is managing staff. So myself and 2 other girls, we manage, I think we have about 78 employees underneath of us. And they're all resident aides or they're med techs. So every day we are managing staff, making sure they're passing the right medications, they're performing the right tasks with residents, they're charting correctly. We're circling back with families every single day, and physicians and audiologists and podiatrists. So now my job is on a much more managerial level, especially with clinical base and employees, which is always can be tricky because right now in the healthcare industry, employment it's there if you want it. There's a lot of opportunities, but also, like I said, we don't have enough resources right now to care for all the seniors coming our way. So it's always a challenge, but it's also a really gratifying experience.
My day varies from day to day depending on what particular courses I'm teaching. So yesterday I was with I had students in the clinical setting, and they were taking care of residents and passing medications. And then after they left, I had a few additional residents to see for some issues and concerns that they had going on. And then in addition to that, I teach the theory or the classroom part of a number of courses. And so there's prep that goes along with that, and then the actual teaching of that material. And then we have my 83-year-old mom living with us, which is a wonderful thing, and we're thankful for that. And I have 89-year-old in-laws that have a number of health concerns, and one of them was actually in the ER yesterday evening. And so there's always things happening that we can't predict, but much of life centers around older adults, which is a wonderful thing. And we have children that I think that hopefully expands their appreciation of their grandparents and just how important they are to our lives and our family.
And I forgot to mention too that a lot of my time is also spent with families. I have family meetings. We try to have them with each family member about once a quarter. And so that's really to check in with them, make sure that they're okay. How are they doing in this journey with their loved one having memory loss and dementia? And so a lot of support and a lot of education is another big part of what I do on a daily basis as well.
Our next question is to find out if any of you individually or is your workplace actively involved in any type of advocacy for older adults or their families.
We at Clark were very involved with Dementia Friendly Michigan. It used to be Grand Rapids, now Dementia Friendly Michigan. So that is a program that is, their mission is to educate as many people as they can about the basics of dementia. And so that way when they're out in the community or maybe with a loved one, if they're more easily able to recognize the signs that an older adult might have dementia, and how can they help? How can they be a person that can step in? So we do that. We have many different support groups for our families, and I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Some of my life is spent also at Grand Valley. Okay, just add that to the, oh yeah. And Grand Valley sponsors the Conference on Aging, which is coming up in February. And so I'm on the planning committee for that as well. It's our way to share great information coming on a national level for caregivers, people who are professional in this work, to come and learn what's new and what's coming up, resources and programs that are available to you. Grand Valley, however, does not have any program toward a degree in gerontology work. That is something personally that I'm working on, because if we're going to have the Conference on Aging, it just makes sense that you would also offer, the coursework. So I'm trying to work on that in my spare time.
Okay, last question. Do you have any specific volunteer or employment needs at your workplace that you would like to share with us?
We always have opportunities in direct care. I think all of us have a lot of experience in direct care. At our community right now, we have our skilled nursing area, which has CNAs, LPNs, RNs, and then in catered living, where I work, we have RAs and med techs that do not require a CNA license. We train you on everything you need to know in regards to taking care of residents or passing medications. That's for employment. For volunteering opportunities, I put Tammy's information on there. She's our volunteer coordinator for Porter Hills, so she would be the best person to contact. But we always need volunteers for just being with residents, going on walks, playing games, reading books, doing nails, doing anything fun. I've even had volunteers who they aren't quite sure what they want to do with their life, and they just shadow me for a couple hours. So there's lots of opportunities out there. Employment and volunteering, and not just at Porter Hills, anywhere in senior care.
Yeah. For us at Clark, I feel like we're always in need of direct care staff. And for volunteer opportunities, same thing. We always need volunteers. I mean, we always have more that we want to be able to do with our residents, but time slips away from you and you just don't have the time to do what you want to do. And that's where our Montessori program comes into play, because this is a really, really awesome program, but it takes staff time. And so what the Montessori program is that we're looking at the resident as a whole, as a person, looking at, what has brought them life and purpose over their life. What are some roles that have really given them meaning? And so how can we continue with them to continue to do those things now that they have dementia? What adaptations do they need to be able to do these things? Like, I have residents who help pass the mail. I have residents that help volunteer in the mini mart, which is our little shop that we have that you can buy, clothes and cookies and that stuff. Other residents that help us set the tables, and we have so many more residents that want to do things, but unfortunately, staff time is precious, and it's precious for this too. And so how can we continue to do that? And so that's a program that just continues to grow and learn. It's a big learning curve, but we always need volunteers to help us with that. And it's a really cool opportunity for the volunteers to create that relationship and that rapport with someone. And I think it's, if you're not sure if you want to go into gerontology, that's a great way to volunteer and to learn, like you said, to really know if this is the career path for you.
Okay, thank you so much. That was wonderful. I would like to open it up to questions for our audience. Do you have anything particular as you listened that you'd like to ask? Don't be shy. This is your chance. Okay, I'll be right there.
Thank you. My name is Sean. I got my CNA the first time back in 2013, where I took care of my grandfather, worked in a nursing home, and now with the help of my wife, I take care of my grandmother. My question for Mariah, and I guess open up to everybody, how has the management perspective changed in terms of creating enough time for direct care workers to focus on each individual resident or patient versus back when I worked in direct care, it was get in, get out, get on to the next person.
Yeah, that's so true, because when I think back to when I was a CNA, it was you get in, you get them dressed, changed, off to breakfast, and you're done, right? Make their bed. So we push so hard on person-centered care. What that means is everything that our staff do on a daily basis is based on the life of the resident. If you don't want to get up at 9 or till 9, we won't get you up till 9. You don't want to get up till 11, that's fine too. Breakfast brought to your room, okay. So their routine is so different because it's based off of the resident's schedule, off anything they want to do. And so from a management perspective, that is difficult. So you have a couple call-ins, and then you're like, okay, this is the amount of staff I have, and these are all the residents I have. How am I going to make sure each person gets that time? Well, that's when I pull out my flats and take my heels off, and I get on the floor with them. And I do the same dirty job in my dress pants. it is really tricky some days to figure out how you're going to make sure that they still get the quality of life that they deserve. But thankfully, I think a lot of people who work in the industry, they develop a heart and they understand, they find ways to make sure residents get things on time. And if that means that they're moving around their routine, then they do. Yeah. Does that answer that?
And I think some of it also is culture change. I mean, it is, I've also been a CNA, and so I understand that it is, I have all these things that I have to do, and I have to get them done by this time. But so often I see my residents and staff that have downtime. And so when you have that person-centered change and this culture change of, okay, instead of just having this time to talk and, laze around, what can I do with the resident to impact their life? Yes. And so I think just that continued culture change too is really important.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question? Okay, well, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it.